Okay, nerds, strap yourselves in for some generic Middle-earth type adventure, starring Captain Kirk leading a gang of diversity all sorts on a magical adventure. Get ready for quirky spells, forced humour, and bumbling idiots fumbling their way through dangerous terrain. You know, just like the game, Dungeons and Dragons, something about thieves. Hello there, you loose units, and welcome back to another episode of Spicy Boy Reviews. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew Iles. That's right, Dungeons and Dragons, written and directed by Jonathan Goldstein and Freaks and Geeks John Francis DeLay. They're both known for directing films like The National Lampoon's Requel and Game Night. We are introduced to our two lead characters here, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, as they're at their exposition hearing. Probationary hearing. But not before we're shown how strong Rodriguez really is with her first boss girl moment in about 30 seconds of the film starting. At this exposition hearing, we get told through flashbacks and narration that Chris Pine's character was once a noble warrior with a wife and kid, before he turned to a life of crime. Wifey Poos gets the old death treatment from a gang of scarlet witches, and Chris Pine and Warrior Rodriguez are left to raise Pine's daughter alone. That's of course until Chris Pine discovers that with a very magical tablet, he can resurrect his deceased wife. So he sets out with a gang of thieves to retrieve said magical tablet, which can only go well. Of course they are captured, and their shady friend Hugh Grant swears to Chris Pine that he will look after his daughter and totally not turn evil. After this exposition hearing, Rodriguez and Pine escape this prison that they're held captive in and off to see their friend, totally not bad guy Hugh Grant. But of course, they discover, spoiler alert, Hugh Grant did turn evil and corrupt and became this politician king of some city. He also has a very powerful witch in his corner as he rules this kingdom. This sounds familiar. Of course, to pour salt on the wound, Chris Pine's daughter wants nothing to do with him. Because this is modern Hollywood, and damn it if we have nothing else, it's stories with deadbeat dads. And then the film likes to remind us quickly that Michelle Rodriguez is the strongest warrior ever. And they escape. They discover that this resurrection magical tablet is held inside a vault, behind a spell-induced door in Hugh Grant's kingdom. And Pine needs to retrieve this resurrection tablet to show his daughter that he's not a complete piece of shit. So, they wrangle up a gang of diversity all sorts to go on a great voyage, and to retrieve all of the MacGuffins. They recruit beta male sorcerer who awkwardly comments at every awkward interaction, which is about 99% of the time, and it never gets old. Also, a shape-shifting druid who constantly turns down the sorcerer's affections, who is played by young, not Amy Adams from It Chapter 1. And of course we have our leads here, Han Solo thieving Chris Pine, and boss bitch strongest woman ever Michelle Rodriguez. Along the way they get help from Black Jesus. He is kind, honourable, handsome, knowledgeable, and really good at everything, the opposite to our lead because modern Hollywood got a modern Hollywood. The movie then goes from getting this MacGuffin to going on to this magical store. But don't forget to stop by for this little curse thing, and you've got to get access to this convenient plot device. You know, kind of like a video game. I'm not sure if the storyline or these characters are based in Dungeons and Dragons lore. You'll have to ask Eddie Munson. Also, there is a moment in this film that felt very heavily a tip of the cap to a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, as far as my limited D&D knowledge goes. But of course, the film destroys that homage pretty bloody quickly, and undercuts it with a shit quirky joke. You know, they round it up with a throwaway line that's mentioned about 8 times in the movie of, can't you just magic your way out of this? I'm getting the feeling the writers weren't D&D fans. I mean, maybe they were. Fuck, what do I know? We then find out that the bad guys are the Red Wizards/Witches from the exposition at the beginning. And they plan to create an army of the dead. This sounds familiar. But then we get a big over-bloated climax, lessons are learned, and in case you forgot, Michelle Rodriguez is the strongest warrior ever. The film is chock full of jokey joke Marvel dialogue, and it undercuts every scene. And although Chris Pine is a master at his delivery, this style of writing is growing really tiresome. I will say though, praising this film, the effects are really, really good. The CGI is really, really good. I mean, you know, give a starving man a cracker, it's going to be the most tasty cracker in his life. What I'm getting at is it's way better than the shit, cartoonish drivel that Marvel keeps shoveling us. There's also beautiful vistas and scenery, and if I'm not mistaken, it was filmed on actual locations. Not the whole film, but a lot of it. I didn't mind the costumes either. It was a bit of sort of like modern fantasy, and way better than the shit that Disney Plus has been putting in front of our eyes. The film does look nice and colourful and pretty bright. Kind of like if the world of Shrek was live action, or a more colourful version of The Witcher. Bradley Cooper also pops up as playing sort of like a hobbit slash dwarf type character. He makes a cute, cheeky little cameo. Pun intended. And to be honest with you, the scene between him and Michelle Rodriguez is rather sweet. Just don't tell Peter Dinklage, he'll have a hissy fit. The score is doing its best Lord of the Rings sweeping epic style, and they're giving it a red hot go. The film is full of flashbacks and exposition dumps. The ending was bloated and predictable, and they even completely rip off a joke from the Avengers. You know, the joke where the Hulk grabs Loki and smashes him around and goes, "Puny God." Yeah, they do that, like fucking exactly that joke. Exactly. However, with all the criticisms that I've been giving the film, I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't completely hate this movie. I had some fun with it, which is better than none at all. It's not great, it's not fantastic, but it's passable. And I think the majority of it comes down to Chris Pine. That man proves himself time and time again that he oozes charisma and charm and can just sell anything. And Hugh Grant is having so much fun, chewing up all the scenery like it's Hubba Bubba Bubblegum. And like I mentioned before, the scenery and vistas were really pretty. There's a lot of colour in this film. And yes, they filmed on actual some locations. For the feel and look of the film, I'd say it's very much like the Conan the Barbarian remake without the masculinity. Anyway guys, that's my review of Dungeons & Dragons. It was pretty predictable, but hey, it wasn't the worst thing I've seen. Write down below if you've seen it, if you're excited for it, but more importantly, what is your favourite fantasy adventure? And of course, if you've made it this far into the episode, please give me a thumbs up because your love and support keeps me going because I just love movies and I assume you do as well. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe icon because I give it episodes weekly. And I'll see you back here next week for the next review. And until then, stay spooky, kids.